An independent editorial analysis of Japan's defense posture and security policy.
The trajectory of modern high-intensity warfare has necessitated a fundamental reevaluation. It forces us to reconsider how asymmetrical capabilities are integrated into national defense architectures. While the attention of global observers often gravitates toward high-profile platforms, such as fifth-generation fighter aircraft or aircraft carriers, the operational reality observed in recent continental conflicts suggests something different. The lethality of decentralized infantry units can determine the friction and cost of territorial incursions. Within this context, the procurement decisions made by the Japanese Ministry of Defense regarding the Type 01 light anti-tank missile, or LMAT, represent more than a routine acquisition cycle. These decisions signal a deliberate structural shift. It is a shift toward distributed lethality and a recognition that the survivability of the ground self-defense force in an island defense scenario hinges on the ubiquity of precision firepower rather than the mass of armored formations. The recent contract awarded to Kawasaki Heavy Industries in February 2026, valued at approximately 2 billion Japanese yen, serves as a focal point for understanding this doctrinal evolution. While the monetary figure may appear modest relative to the aggregate defense budget of 9.04 trillion Japanese yen for the fiscal year, the allocation prioritizes the sustainment of manufacturing lines for precision-guided munitions over the introduction of entirely new platforms. This prioritization reflects a critical lesson regarding industrial capacity and inventory depth. High attrition rates in modern conflicts demonstrate that the sophistication of a weapon system is often less decisive than its availability in volume. By maintaining continuous production of the Type 01 LMAT, Tokyo is effectively ensuring its industrial base against the risk of supply chain decoupling during a crisis. This is a vulnerability that becomes acute when relying solely on foreign military sales for critical munitions. From a technical perspective, the ongoing refinement of the Type 01 system illustrates a preference for operational responsiveness over theoretical maximum performance. The shift toward uncooled infrared image homing seekers in the latest production lots addresses a specific logistical constraint found in earlier generations of anti-tank weaponry. Systems requiring gas cooling cartridges for their thermal sensors introduce a latency period between target acquisition and engagement. This delay has proven fatal in environments where engagement windows are measured in seconds. The elimination of this cooling requirement accomplishes two things. It streamlines the logistics footprint by removing the need to transport volatile gas canisters. But perhaps more importantly, it enables immediate engagement capabilities. This modification suggests that the ground self-defense force envisions a combat environment characterized by fleeting targets and high mobility requirements. In such a theater, the operator must fire and relocate immediately to avoid counter-battery fire or drone observation. The emphasis on the Type 01 also highlights a distinct approach to the ergonomics of warfare. This differentiates Japanese procurement from its Western allies. While systems like the American FGM-148 Javelin offer extended range and proven lethality, their weight and bulk impose maneuverability penalties on infantry operating in the humid, rugged terrain of the Nansei Islands. The Type 01, weighing significantly less at approximately 17.5 kilograms, for the complete system, is optimized for the physical stature of the average Japanese service member and the specific topographical challenges of the southwestern archipelago. This decision underscores a trade-off where absolute range is sacrificed for portability. It prioritizes the ability of a single soldier to transport the weapon through dense vegetation or urbanized littoral zones without debilitating fatigue. It reflects a systems engineering approach where the human operator is considered a critical variable in the weapon's overall effectiveness. Strategically, the deployment of these systems aligns with the broader transition from a static, heavy armor-centric defense strategy historically focused on the plains of Hokkaido to a mobile, denial-based strategy in the Southwest. In this archipelagic defense model, the primary objective is not necessarily to destroy an invasion force in a decisive, pitched battle. Instead, the goal is to impose prohibitive costs on any adversary attempting to establish a beachhead or secure airfields. The Type 01 LMAT functions as the tactical enabler of this strategy. It allows small, dispersed units to threaten high-value amphibious assets and armored vehicles. This creates a multi-layered threat environment where an adversary cannot assume safety even after bypassing major defensive fortifications. The integration of these man-portable systems into the wider surveillance and reconnaissance network suggests a move toward a sensor-to-shooter loop, where decentralized infantry squads act as the terminal effectors of a broader intelligence grid. However, this reliance on indigenous precision, guided munitions introduces complex industrial and budgetary challenges. The decision to prioritize domestic production through Kawasaki Heavy Industries, while beneficial for autonomy, often comes with a higher per-unit cost compared to off-the-shelf purchases from global suppliers due to the lack of economies of scale. The reform of export guidelines discussed in early February 2026 could potentially mitigate this. It may open avenues for the Type 01 to be supplied to partners in Southeast Asia, thereby lowering unit costs through increased production volume. Yet the success of such an export strategy depends heavily on the political willingness to engage in the transfer of lethal aid. It also depends on the ability of the Japanese defense industry to compete with established exporters on price and technical support. Furthermore, the operational efficacy of the Type 01 in a saturated electronic warfare environment remains a critical variable. As potential adversaries enhance their active protection systems and soft kill capabilities, the reliance on infrared guidance introduces a vulnerability to dazzling and multispectral obscurance. The continuous upgrading of the seeker software and hardware becomes mandatory to maintain relevance. This dynamic necessitates a procurement cycle that is agile enough to integrate software patches and hardware modifications rapidly. This is a tempo that traditional defense bureaucracy often struggles to match. The interactions between the acquisition agency and the prime contractor must therefore evolve. They must move from a rigid specification compliance model to a more iterative development process. The integration of the Type 01 into the overarching defense architecture also raises questions regarding the balance between defensive firepower and logistical sustainability. While a distributed force structure increases survivability, it complicates resupply operations. In a scenario where maritime and air superiority are contested, now resupplying isolated island garrisons with missile stocks becomes a hazardous undertaking. The current stockpiling efforts indicated by the 2026 budget allocation address the initial magazine depth. But the long-term ability to sustain high rates of fire without secure sea lines of communication remains a structural vulnerability. The system is only as effective as the logistical network that supports it. This implies that future investments must focus as heavily on autonomous resupply vessels and aerial delivery systems as they do on the munitions themselves. Ultimately, the trajectory of the Type 01 LMAT program serves as a microcosm of the wider transformation occurring within Japan's defense posture. It represents a move away from symbolic, high-visibility platforms toward pragmatic and utilitarian capabilities designed for a specific theory of victory based on attrition and denial. The choice to invest in an indigenous man-portable anti-tank capability reflects a nuanced understanding of the intersection between geography, demographics, and technology. It acknowledges that in the context of 21st century warfare, the ability of a small unit to exert disproportionate influence on the battlefield is a strategic asset. The effectiveness of this approach will depend not on the specifications of the missile alone, but on the successful integration of these tactical units into a resilient command and control architecture that can survive the initial phases of high-intensity conflict.